You know that this podcast has begun when you can hear dogs barking in the background.
Are your feet tired or are the dogs barking?
My feet are tired.
My feet are tired and my bones have this weird thing where it sounds like a dog barking when they're tired.
Yeah, it's a clicking and I can't afford to go get it checked out. I'm hoping it kills me before
I'm the reason that expression exists is because I have a rare bone condition that my feet bones bark like dogs when they're tired. I also have a Charlie horse that lives in my thigh or
the stable of my
calf.
Oh, calf.
Yeah, I'm mostly made up of animal parts.
You're a Frankenstein of animal parts.
Yeah, much like a Frank, a hot dog. Is that why they call them Franks? Because it's like made up of different dead things.
Yeah, Mary Shelley was a real
hot dog head.
She's a real hot dog head.
She's from Chicago, you know.
She just carry her lover's heart in a bag, walking around the streets of Chicago, just trying to catch a comedy show or a jazz concert.
Yeah. Anyone know where I can get some celery salt to put on this?
I'm dying for a hoagie. The Bears.
Does anyone know where my pizza can be deeper? Well, this is L.A. Meekly. If you couldn't tell from the hot dog discussion, obviously it's L.A. Meekly, but even more obvious, this is a Los Angeles history podcast.
We know nothing about Chicago. What state it is in? I forget a lot.
This state of the Bears. I mean, you want to talk about a state? Look at the state of the Bears. Oh, boy.
Jeez.
Wait a minute. Yeah, the Bear and the Bears. The TV show, The Bear.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
What is it with Chicago and the Bears? Anyway, we're here to talk about L.A. Meekly.
Even a state where there are bears?
Yeah, California.
Oh, yeah, we're the bear.
We're the bear.
Hey, we're the bear.
And at the end of the day, we are the Bears.
We're the bear.
So this is Daniel Zaffron, the Bear.
I am Greg Gonzalez, the bear. I feel like anyone who's smart would have turned this off 116 episodes ago.
100. So one before
started? Yeah, one before we even started.
Well, luckily, the people who listen to us are historically stupid, which is why one thing we want to talk about. Let's jump right into what we did in the past month,
yes,
Greg.
Let's do that.
Let's talk about something that all of our stupid listeners came out.
They're so good looking, but they're not very smart.
So what did you do in the past month of May?
Well, you, sir, were invited by My Valley Pass, and you brought me along as your +1 your date.
Wait, yeah, no, I forgot. I was the one who's supposed to talk about the thing with the stupid fans.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me talk about our stupid fans.
Okay. Talk about our stupid fans that are I need to reiterate, so good looking. Every single one of them. A Looker, a Paul Newman, a Grace Callie. However.
So in this past month of May, since you know what? As stupid as our fans are, I'm even stupider because I forgot that I was the one who was supposed to be talking. We had a live show that we were a part of with LA Not So Confidential and Holly Weird Paranormal.
Both great podcasts and great people. We had never met.
Really stupid though, right?
Really unqualified.
I'm talking about us.
Oh yeah, really unqualified. We had never hung out with the doctors before, Shiloh and Scott, but we had talked to them all over Zoom before, and then we never hung out with Tammy and Bryce from Hollywood. So like the 6 of us hanging out together for that brief period before the show was a lot of fun, and we were all.
To reiterate, who didn't make it out, it was at the Heritage Square Museum. We got to sit in an old church.
It was very midnight mass.
Yeah, it was. There was even a giant half-melted candle.
It was,
that
yeah.
I insisted we light, and they insisted was a fire hazard.
Yeah.
Just because the whole place is made of wood.
Yeah. Oh, whatever. There's a river down there, right? Just toss the whole thing into the river.
The Arroyo Seco, the famously wet Arroyo Seco, is right there.
It's a roaring Seco. A roaring Seco.
Sure, it's a freeway now, but we talked about the Doheny murder, and we'll release that audio when the right's clear.
Yeah.
When the dust settles.
When the Black Eyed Peas gets off our back about it.
Yeah, so we should probably address that for some reason, like the show couldn't start on time because for some reason my microphone...
Out of 6 microphones.
Was playing a Black Eyed Peas song.
I need you to do another take of that, but just say Black Eyed Peas with less disdain this time. If you could. If you have it in you. They were playing the Black Eyed Peas? That's how you said it.
You want me to say something with less disdain for the people who sang... What do they even sing? They sang... Run in, and run in. What do they do?
Well, once Fergie was on board, is Fergie Well, obviously Fergalicious is a Fergie song, but was it a Black Eyed Peas and Fergie song?
Oh, wait a minute.
It just rips off Supersonic anyway, so like...
you want me to say it with less disdain when there's a song called Fergalicious, sung by Fergie?
Yeah, actually I do. If possible.
You want me to apologize to will.i.am and...
various other members of the Black Eyed Peas?
and the rest.
Yeah, and the rest. Yeah, your microphone was playing Black Eyed Peas, and we were like, well, how's this happening? And we're standing outside. We're just like sitting under the shadow of a giant radio tower. I'm like, it's probably that.
But why would my microphone be picking up? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It's ghosts.
It was very, very strange.
Yeah.
The show went well.
Yeah,
everyone enjoyed it. And best of all, I know we famously refer to them as our stupid fans, but they're also loving.
They're loving and they're intelligent in a certain way.
They have emotional intelligence. But there were a lot of people who came who like L.A. Meekly and came up to us after the show, and it was so nice.
Yeah, it was very nice.
It was very touching. Like we haven't done a live thing since the failed Earth Day of 2020, which didn't happen. But before that, I don't know when we last did a thing.
Our Halloween thing was 2018, I think.
So 5 years ago.
5 years ago was our last.
So we don't have a lot of face-to-face interaction with each other.
Yeah, it was nice seeing Daniel for the first time in 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, we do record together in person, but I stand behind a black curtain so Greg can't see me. It's indecent. We're orthodox that way.
A lot of people don't know we record in a confession booth. Daniel says it's for the sound quality, but I feel like he's actually not.
And I wear this pig mask for sound quality.
Yeah. And the Saw guy, Jigsaw's here, and he's just like editing it and just making sure
That's why they call him Jigsaw. But yeah, it was all of the people who came and talked to us after the show. And if you were there and didn't talk to us after the show, it was really nice and we really appreciated that.
Yeah.
And
thanks for filling up the room. It was very nice of you guys to do that.
Yeah, I don't remember anything that happened except for Black Eyed Peas and talking to nice people. Nice but dumb people after the show.
Yeah, it was very nice to get to see everybody. Old faces, new faces. It was a lot of fun. And
Jigsaw.
And Jigsaw. And sometimes you have to cut a face off to get a key to let yourself out of a bathroom that you've been handcuffed in.
Old faces, new faces, old faces that are your new face. We'll be releasing that in a month or so because we covered a version of the story we're going to tell today, a shorter and slightly different version of the story. But after the live thing, we got to go on the haunted tour of a couple of the buildings at Heritage Square. And that was really fun.
Yeah.
And you should, if you get a chance, go to Heritage Square.
Yeah, and they have a lot of events there. So if you have a chance, go to an event and maybe you get a ghost tour out of it.
Yeah, maybe you can do a live show at Heritage Square too.
And just so you know, it seems like it's a long street without parking, but then there's a dirt path to your right, and that's the parking for Heritage Square Museum. Just so you know ahead of time, because I didn't know that, and that has caused me to not go to Heritage Square. It was like that. There's no parking, and the street's making me claustrophobic, but it wraps around. I'd like to talk a little bit about a certain concern of mine that is watching A New Hope out in the cold.
Okay, so we are now switching to what Greg was going to talk about, which is also something we did together. We spent a lot of time together this past month.
It was nice. It reminded me that we used to be friends.
Hang on. Let me adjust this crucifix here in the sound booth. I think we're getting a little bit of feedback.
My Valley Pass, with a very, very great Instagram feed and event hosts.
Organization. What are they? They're an entity.
They're an entity. You're right. They're an entity. I mostly know them.
They're the entity.
They invited us to a showing of A New Hope, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, in the yard where ILM used to be in Van Nuys, just off of off of Sepulveda.
Valjean.
Or
Valjean.
Les Mis reference. But it was really great, and a lot of people were dressed up, and we saw Jawa, and it made direct eye contact with us.
Oh my God. That was eerie. I don't think that whoever was in the Jawa costume, Jigsaw must have gotten to them because they did not have a face. It was just glowing eyes.
It was just glowing eyes. And a good distance away from us, so that Jawa shouldn't have been hearing us say, look, it's a Jawa, but like a slow, like Nosferatu turn, and then just like direct glowy eye contact. And I thought, well, that's it for me, pal.
It was really cool to sit in, because they had old pictures out of when they were making the special effects for Star Wars, and you could see I'm sitting right here, and this is where the trench run of the Death Star that we're watching on screen right there was happening.
It's really great. It was a little cold that night, and I came to the realization that I love Star Wars, but I love being warm just a little bit more. And if I was willing to trade a jacket to never have seen any Star Wars movies, I'd be like, yeah, that. But that's not the situation. So it was a great time. And check out My Valley Pass because they have a lot of events.
Yeah, they do a lot of this sort of thing. I know they have a whole summer movie series coming up in like Balboa Park or something
cool.
like that. But
and they've been known to show Back to the Future too, I think. At times,
they've
'cause it's
been
also,
known to dabble in Back to the Future.
They dabble with time travel.
But I want them to go like just set up everybody in the driveway of the house of Marty McFly's house in Arleta and just show Back to the Future there.
And then George McFly comes and yells at us like we're Biff.
Oh, so confident George McFly comes out.
Yeah, future. He hits Biff.
Now My Valley Pass.
Yeah.
Don't con me.
Don't con. What we meant was we're only going to watch the first two. Did I say that we're going to watch the whole trilogy?
Sorry, Mr. McFly.
Why would they still be talking? Why would they be pals? They seem like they're pals by the end.
What?
Of it.
You're not well, just because I punched you in high school
doesn't mean we
still
can't
talk.
be friends. Yeah, we're pals. You know where I park my car.
You used to be my biggest bully, and then you tried to make a pass at Melissa, and I broke your neck. And now we're best friends.
And now it brought us closer together. Yeah. Breaking your nose brought us closer together. But that was a good time. So check out My Valley Pass and check out, Heritage Square Museum.
Go to Heritage Square and check out all of our intelligent fans.
They're so smart.
I got a note from corporate. I should stop calling them stupid.
They're not very good looking, but they're all so smart.
So now that we've talked about May, let's talk about the greatest month of all. June.
Yay.
Everybody loves June.
June.
The month of the summer solstice, right? No, the summer equinox.
I already messed up equinox from another podcast. I need to spread it amongst two. June, home of June gloom. The other day it was kind of muggy. Like it was cloudy, but still kind of warm. And I thought, this is my favorite type of day for horror. Is muggy days. I don't know what it is.
Muggy days.
Makes you wanna... Yeah, so it's June. Hi, welcome June 1st.
So let's explain what we're going to be talking about for this June. Since we were doing research already for this live show about the Doheny mansion, we thought we'd go all in on that stuff that lives underground, and we're not talking about the mole people.
Not talking about the lizard folk. We're not supposed to bring them up.
So we decided to do a whole episode on the story of oil in Los Angeles, because we've talked about it as like when we did the Doheny Mansion murder a long time ago. We briefly talked about it.
We brought up oil a little bit in the Venice episode too.
And you've talked a little bit about when we talked about like pre-Spanish stuff. You started way back in the Pleistocene era.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I mean, LA Not So Confidential was covering the two deaths at Greystone, so we thought it was our responsibility to cover Doheny and how he got rich and the.
It would be irresponsible if we didn't.
It would be irresponsible if we talked about skateboarding when they were talking about a double murder.
So yeah, I'm going to get us started. Since you'll be talking about the big boy Doheny, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened pre-Doheny.
Pre-Doheny, you're going to talk about the 100 or so oil wells before he came along and looked at the car and was like, I got it.
Yeast-Heny. You have Doheny, and I have yeast and flour. Yeast-Heny and his wife Flour-Heny.
I have six-pack Heny. You ripped. Go ahead.
Yeah, ripped it. Doheny and Ripped-Heny. Houdini. So Black Gold, Texas Tea, Clampett's Delight, La Paya Tar Pits, Jurassic Jalopy Juice, a 60-foot Gilder Gusher, Daniel Plainview's Sunday Special. Oil. That's what we're talking about here.
Virgin.
Extra virgin.
Like Daniel.
Double pressed like Greg. So as we've kind of talked about in the past, the LA area was rich with prehistoric animals all the way back to the beginning of time, Adam and Eve. So all of Adam and Eve bones turned into precious goo that fuels my Hummer today. But if you believe in evolution, if you want to listen to what Gavin old news so much,
if you want to go through your family photo albums and say, this chimp here is my grandpa,
What? Suddenly, I can't talk about Grandpa Slappy? Or what's a good chimp name? Grandpa Coco. I guess that's the typical.
Yeah.
I guess Coco, the movie, kind of stole that from chimps, though. Anyway, so if you want to get technical about this, it was animal bones from the late Pleistocene era and early Holocene eras.
Is that really where that comes from?
What we're
Oil.
Wait a minute. Hold on. What are you asking? Where oil comes from, or what era of oil?
I thought you were saying that bones crushed up makes oil, which made no sense to me.
Okay, so you are confused by the obvious thing. I mean, it's not crushed up bones.
Yeah, I
the
understand
bones
that.
decay and whatever. I mean, I'm no expert. I thought that Adam and Eve was the beginning of time. But dead animal bones is what oil becomes.
Okay.
From millions, hundreds of thousands of years
This is
ago.
very much like in drawing books where they're going to teach you how to draw a portrait of a face in 4 easy steps. And the first one is just drawing a circle. And the fourth one is having a complete portrait.
Right.
And I'm just like, there's 2 steps. I'm like, okay.
There's a missing step here.
There's like 2 missing steps and I'm not going to ask.
You ever heard of the missing link, huh? You think the missing link is in my photo album?
Bigfoot's bones. I'm talking about Bigfoot's bones.
Where is the elephant man in my family tree?
If you have to ask, you're the elephant man in your family.
I am not an animal, Greg. Yeah, it's so the bones. Look, we have listeners who can explain this better because
I'm going to take your word
smart.
for it because no matter what you tell me,
Where did you think oil came from? Then it was just
I just thought
goo
it was
inside of the earth.
seepage from the crust of the earth. I don't know. Just like the earth, like
You thought the earth was deep dish? Were you from Chicago?
I thought it was a gusher.
Gushers.
It's a gusher. If you squeeze the earth hard enough, oil will come out because that's the earth's blood.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought it was just like crust goo.
Could have called it earth blood.
Here's a dumb question. You don't have to answer it. Is extra virgin olive oil the bones from extra virgins? Go ahead. I'm just kidding.
I thought you said this was a dumb question. Yeah, that's where all the Vestal virgins.
Yeah, the vessel
We've
virgin.
been drinking them. Drinking them. We've been dipping our bread in them this whole time. So the Keech and all the other tribes in this general area were aware of the surface level manifestation of these biblical bubblings. So they would see what we call tar, starring Kate Blanchett, and would skim it and use it for adhesive and sealant purposes like waterproofing and things like that.
Yeah, I feel bad for everyone because you know that was eventually what they did with it. But at first, like, I bet it tastes pretty good.
That looks.
Let's dip our bread in that, and then after a couple dead ones, they're like, let's find another thing to do with it.
Is this extra virgin? Yeah, I was wondering the same thing of like, someone must have like dropped a basket and like, what's this?
What's this? Yeah.
But like, yeah, I wonder at what point they realized like, oh, this is good for this.
Yeah.
It does look good.
It does look good.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind, like
if I see a cake that looks that dark, I'm like, oh, that's going to be extra sweet.
I could see myself like doing a fondue sort of thing with it of like, I've got all of these native to Los Angeles bananas and pieces of cheese.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick this right into this delicious looking tar.
Yeah. It's just so spreadable.
The incredible spreadable tar. So there were certain parts of town where seepages were larger, like in the Fairfax area, which we'll get to a little bit later. But another such area was way up in the mall city of Los Angeles, Santa Clarita.
Oh, really?
In particular, in the hills between Granada Hills and Newhall, which became known as Pico Canyon for the reason I'm about to tell you, but is now known as the Santa Susana Mountains.
Right.
So like you'll of course recall the Aliso Canyon gas leak.
Right.
That area is rich in natural gas and oil because of Adam and Eve's bones. So as the legend goes, in 1865, 2 guys named Jesus Hernandez and Ramon Perea were hunting either a deer or a bear in this area when they stumbled upon a particularly gooey seepage. There's a lot of gross words when you talk about oil. Seepage, gushers.
Yeah. Fracking. Fracking's a nasty little word.
That is fracking's a little word for little perverts. So these 2 guys, Ramon and Jesus, they immediately brought this ooey gooey sticky icky to the guy who owned all of the land in the area, Andres Pico, the brother of Pio Pico and the guy whose house we once did a different live show in.
A different live show there.
So now, still according to the legend, a guy who was staying with Pico at the time was his nephew-in-law, a Civil War surgeon named Dr. Vincent Gelchich.
Yikes, Civil War surgeon.
I know.
His medicine shelf is
It's just a saw. It's different saws.
It's saws and whiskey.
That's also his plan for a Friday night. So this guy had experience with refining oil in Pennsylvania and identified the crude and showed Andres Pico how to refine this stuff using a copper pot and a, quote, worm. I don't know if this is some oil lingo or if it's just exactly what it sounds like. Like, I don't know if he's like, take all this stuff, put in a copper pot, throw a worm in, and
the worm absorbs
a little bit of elbow grease.
Yeah. Is it like a plumbing snake? It's not a real snake, it turns out. And
hang on, all of these like boas start coming out.
He's on to us, boy.
Get him! We had a good
thing going. We had a good thing going here.
All we have to do is get all of his hair out of the drain every once in a while, and he gives us all the mice he wants.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of mice in here.
A lot of mice, and he doesn't turn us into belts.
So yeah, I don't know if like literally they're just throwing a worm in. Like I have no idea what this means, and no one explain like in all the stuff I was reading, no one explained like, okay, before you start laughing, a worm is actually this chemical.
Right.
But also at the same time, no one said like, can you believe it? A worm. Like nobody either way was explaining it. So I'm just going to have to take it at two face values.
Two face value.
Worms have two faces.
Yeah. It must have been in the time where it's like, I have a headache, get a leech. Like,
yeah, that's what, like, it could make total sense either way.
Yeah.
So worms and crude, that's in a copper pot. As long as you've got, I mean, the copper pot's the hardest thing to find. So now, according to this legend, this one that I've just been telling you, Andres Pico was fueling his home by burning oil he was harvesting from the Newhall area before that technology otherwise spread out to California. And if some of the stories saying that this was actually happening in 1854 are true, that's before oil refining was even a technology in the world.
That's crazy.
But again, this is legend. Worms.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Magic worms, copper pots. Jeez.
Oh, there was also this other thing. They had these beans that grew really tall. And that's where Capitol Records building came from. Stole it from a giant, his record collection.
There were 3 blind women who would stir this copper pot. They call it a cauldron, but that's outdated.
3 blind women that's what they used to call ladles. So in any case, people believe this story enough and claims.
Yeah, get it. Yeah.
Started being made in that area by organizations with grandiose names like Los Angeles Asphalt and Petroleum Mining District and the San Fernando Petroleum Mining District, which I'm sure were just guys with shovels.
Yeah, and poetry. That title is pure poetry.
I know. The sort of beauty that only a man with a shovel could come up with.
A man with a shovel and little imagination.
And a worm.
Yeah.
I came out to California with a copper pot and a worm, and look at me now. The worm has like a monocle on.
Yeah, I don't know if I can help you. I'm going to talk to my worm about it, okay? But I'm going to tell you right now, he usually says no. But I'm going to talk to the worm.
I'm thinking of branching the company off into 2, and he just cuts the worm in half.
Oh no, my competition.
So all this, it drew in some of the Pennsylvania oil people hoping to strike it rich again out west. Also, this stuff in the Santa Susana Mountains. But this little mini boom turned into a full-fledged bust quickly because nobody really found anything worth digging for in those hills. Our hills, sorry.
Yep.
Their best one was producing about 12 barrels per day, which is kind of, I mean, I'd take it, but that's kind of nothing.
Yeah.
Until September 1876. A guy named Alex Mentry with the California Star Oil Company drilled the romantically named Pico No. 4 oil well. And this one, the first one in the area drilled by steam power, hit literal pay dirt.
Whoa.
This one started spurting out 70 barrels a day and became the first commercially productive oil well in the western United States. So this was in Newhall.
Wow.
And sparked the great Los Angeles oil boom. This is where it all began.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, the Newhall area had over 200 wells that were producing over 180,000 barrels a year.
Whoa.
This helped grow the area of Newhall and also a town called Mentryville, named after the guy who started this. That's now a ghost town that you can visit.
Oh, wow.
Right just on the other side of the old Aliso Canyon gas leak. Just plug your nose.
If you manage to make it on that side of it, have fun at the ghost town.
So to handle all this oil, California's first oil pipeline was built in 1879 to stretch the 7 miles from Pico Canyon to a refinery that was set up in Newhall. Pico No. 4 oil well was made a National Historic Landmark on November 13th, 1966, and was in operation until 1990.
Damn.
So this is where it all began. But Greg, who perfected all this pillaging of the earth in Los Angeles?
Let's talk about one of the faces that's carved into the Mount Everest of Los Angeles fathers.
Yeah, he is. That's why I wanted to do this, because we've talked to, it's been a while since we covered a pillar of society
Yeah.
of Los Angeles.
The problematic heads of LA Fathers, William Mulholland, Harry Chandler, William Parker,
What's wrong with these people?
and Edward Doheny. Yeah, all white men who instilled their will in the city and were living with the repercussions to this day. Edward Doheny is maybe I'd say one of the founding fathers of modern Los Angeles because of what he did.
He certainly changed the physical landscape of the city.
Yeah. So let's talk
Gave
about
it acupuncture.
He drank the milkshake, if you've seen the movie. And I've made that reference to Ada, who has not seen the movie. And she's like, milkshake, it's cool. What? Huh?
So it's like an Archie movie?
He made like In and Out?
Since we've been doing all this research and constantly quoting milkshake lines, which is only one, it makes me want to watch There Will Be Blood again. Like, I feel like I need to see it again.
I've heard more people in the last year say it's not that great, but I think it's one of the best movies ever made, one of the top 10 of the last century. But yeah, go ahead, take your time with it.
I got to rewatch Land Before Time first, which is the prequel to There Will Be Blood. But
how did the oil get there?
That's what you should be watching to understand oil a little bit. But we saw that movie together, didn't we?
We did. I don't know if that was the one where you had a hot dog in my pocket. Yeah, it was, right?
And I was happy to see you. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, and then we saw...
No. That might have been...
No Country for Old Men.
No.
Similar things.
No Country for Old Men. I had a hot dog in my pocket. There Will Be Blood. We went and ate burritos off the
hood of one of our cars.
The trunk of my car.
Yeah.
Saying, what does it mean? What does it mean?
Oh, right.
As we were eating sloppy burritos on the trunk of my car.
Romantic. One of the best nights of my life.
When the moon hits your eye like a sloppy burrito.
I remember you liked No Country for Men more than you did There Will Be Blood, and I was the opposite. And we were like maybe about to like throw blows over it. And now they're like, I love them both as my babies. They're both my children. Edward Doheny was born. Oh, and by the way, I've added some more stuff in, but this is a lot of what I said for the live show. So I'm giving you the opportunity to interrupt all the times that you didn't get to before.
Right. Yeah, I didn't. We were talking about that. I didn't interrupt much at the live show because I didn't want to set up. I didn't want to. I already made us late by playing the Black Eyed Peas. Yeah. I insisted on playing the Black Eyed Peas.
It's the way that wrestlers enter a ring by banging a song for everybody. You had to do Black Eyed Peas.
I want the 12-inch cut. But yeah, I didn't interrupt much because I didn't want to make the show go longer than it did, and also interrupt the flow of not only you but two other podcasts.
Yeah. That would.
So here we go. I've got notes.
Edward Doheny was born August 10th, 1856, the third of 5 children. His grandfather, Michael, had been involved in the famine rebellion in Ireland in 1848, which shows how tough the Irish are. I didn't know you could rebel against the famine. Anywho, the Dohenys fled Ireland for Canada when Doheny's father, Patrick, was a teenager. Patrick, Doheny's dad, went into whaling and hunting seals in Baffin Bay, which is awful. Don't hunt seals. Which is how Patrick...
But whales, all them all. However many whales you can catch, take them.
Oh my God, you always take the whale. You read Moby Dick one time and you always take the big monster whale side.
Greg's an orca.
But his dad lost an eye while hunting whales and seals. When one-eyed Patrick met Eleanor, the two moved...
Wait a minute, is he Captain Eyehook?
He's Captain AI.
Captain N.I.
Yeah, N.I. The two moved first to New York, and then after having 2 boys, they moved after that to Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. A year later, Edward was born. Edward Doheny was...
The romantic city of Fond du Lac.
Yeah, Fond du Lac.
Like Fondle cock.
Edward's childhood was fairly normal, aside from the fact that he himself requested to start school sooner than most. He asked permission to start school at the age of 4.
What?
I think that from everything I could tell, he was somebody who was like...
This is Edward Doheny.
Edward Doheny wants to continually, like, I want to be a grown-up. It seems like from the reading anyways.
That's so weird.
Like pushing himself to make money from the age of 4.
Mummy, I would like to go to Harvard today.
Mummy, I would like to drive the car today to McDonald's. As a teenager, when many of his students his age were leaving school to start jobs, Edward kept attending classes while also taking a part-time job at a sawmill. He graduated high school at the age of 15 in 1872. The California Gold Rush had happened 20 years earlier. The Civil War had just ended 6 years before that, before 1872. So the idea of the West as a place of golden opportunities and no historical hangups, that they knew about, was going on people's minds. Like Civil War just ended. The North and the South had just like blown each other up. The West is like, let's just start going west because there's no like trouble there.
There's only...
But they didn't know about the trouble here.
We call them the Troubles.
They came all the way from trouble Europe. Young Edward took his adventurous spirit from his father and at 16 left home to find success in whatever form that would take. At first it meant odd jobs, which included door-to-door salesman, mule driver, fruit packer, gunslinger, singing waiter.
Okay.
And there's rumors that he was a pimp and murdered a man in Laredo, Texas, which shows how hard it was to be a singing waiter in Texas.
Okay, you can't use your same line from the show unless you're going to use the ones I wrote.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not only I deleted them, I double deleted them. So I forgot what they were.
I wiped my hard drive.
Yeah, I wiped my hard drive and I wet it.
Okay. I installed a virus in that one part that the line was on the hard drive, but I didn't get a chance to interrupt you in the show.
Yeah.
Singing waiter in the 1870s?
There's 4 songs, and 2 of them are Skip to My Lou.
Did somebody order the she'll be coming round the mashed potatoes? Well, like why was
your family was murdered? Where? At DeCamp Town Races, and then he starts singing.
But why? Like, I don't understand. I feel like now I need to know the history of singing waiters because
singing waiter in 1872 sounds very dangerous. And like, how would you get around? Like walking around?
What?
Like everything's so far apart.
Singing. Wait, why would a singing waiter need to walk?
Oh, singing waiter. I'm sorry. I for some reason thought it was the same thing as a
a
door-to-door
telegram.
Singing
No.
telegram.
A singing waiter is someone who literally
is a singing waiter. Yeah.
Have you been to a restaurant? Like I've been to a restaurant once where it had singing waiters. Like is he like he jumped up on the like it's like Coyote Ugly. Like did he jump up on the table and was like staying alive?
Well, you've never been to the Rio Casino before? They'll be serving you drinks and then they have to stop and then they have to get on top of a bunch of slot machines and sing and then they get back down and you're like, actually, I wanted a Jack and Coke.
He must have worked at Cold Stone.
He
and
must have
someone
worked
gave him a tip.
and then he would have to sing. Yeah, he'd have to sing a song while looking like there was a gun to his head.
That's just, I don't understand how there was singing waiters in 1870 something.
Well, that makes more sense to be a singing waiter than a singing telegram person in 1872.
No, I think at least telegrams existed. Like there were waiters in 1872.
Sure.
That's just as shocking to me.
You've never seen a Western before? You gotta go to someone's gotta bring your crap to the table and they're probably a prostitute.
Well, maybe that's where his pimping came in.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
That's just when he was the manager of the restaurant, of the singing restaurant.
I don't want to bother my girls right now. They're busy. What did you want? Oh, what did you want?
What did you want? What did you? Yeah, he was all of the stuff he was singing was like Beethoven.
Yeah. All of it was set to In the Hole of the Mountain King.
I will bring your drinks right now. I've been waiting weeks to say that, but it just didn't. The idea of him being a singing waiter
I wish that this was still a live show because every time I'd hit a fact, I wanted to point to the photo like him. Like this dork with the mustache, with the big funny mustache, was sleeping outside in the wilderness with a gun in his hand. Him, this guy, this singing waiter. An interesting thing I read that didn't make it into the live show was that 11 years after leaving home, Doheny decided to finally write back home to contact his family, but there was no one there to receive it. His father had died a few months after Doheny left home. His mother and sister passed away several years later. His older brother was unaccounted for, and the younger one died while he was still at home. His one remaining brother was living in Chicago and either did not receive the bears. Was living in Chicago.
That must have been where he killed the bear.
He either didn't receive it, the forwarded letter, or chose not to answer it. And then Doheny waited another 13 years before heading back to Wisconsin. His entire family roots were all but gone. I'm not sure what's so impactful about this to me, about all of what I know about Doheny, but it makes me think of in There Will Be Blood, when a guy comes to Daniel Plainview and says, I'm your brother, why he receives him so well. I wonder how lonely this guy was.
Yeah.
And how much of a lonesome figure. Like he has a family and starts a family and then loses many people in that family later.
I often wonder how lonely most singing waiters I see are. And the answer is invariably very.
Very. Now they're doing fine.
Yeah, it sounds like a...
Because, spoiler alert, his daughter dies, his son dies, his first wife, after they get divorced, killed herself.
Dies.
And then he dies.
Yeah.
So it's like a life of death.
Yeah, well.
Most lives are, I guess.
That's the life of an oil man. That's the life of a singing waiter.
That's the life of a gunslinger. A few years out in the mid-1870s, Doheny found himself mining in the Rocky Mountains, hunting for gold and silver. That hunt took him to New Mexico at the Black Range Mountains north of Lake Valley by the 1880s, where he and 4 partners made some actual money. At this point, Doheny was strictly a prospector. He himself wasn't mining at all. He would just like find land which was silver. He'd put claims on it and then sell, the claims off to people at high prices. So he wasn't at the time mining.
I never even put that together, that a prospector doesn't actually do the dirty work.
I guess you could do both, but I think
that so you're a prospector miner?
Oh, prospector. You're not a miner prospector. You're a prospector. You're not a young prospector.
I'm a singer-songwriter and I'm a prospector miner.
Yeah, I'm a prospector miner, yeah.
When I've read he's a prospector, he's wearing the flappy pants and he has a pickaxe.
And he has a big beard. And
I guess he's just a guy in a suit with like a watch fob, and he says, I shall lay claim. Yeah.
There. 1882 and 1883 were both very good years for Doheny, putting thousands of dollars in his pocket as he continued to look for the big bonanza, as these bonanza boys call it.
Is that what they called it?
Me and Ada went to Virginia City. It was silver mines up there, and that they had this group of 4 men who had mined successfully and built Virginia City, basically, and they're called the Bonanza Boys. And like bonanza is just the word every tour you go to. They're like, well, the Bonanza Boys hit the big bonanza. According to journalist BC Forbes, most nights Doheny slept out in the wilderness with his faithful rifle at his side, his 6-shooter ready for action, and a hunter's knife at his belt. I kind of laugh at this, but the years we think of as the Old West was literally at this point. Like, many people consider the Old West to be between 1865 to 1890. It's 1883. Like, this is the Old West. Like, you're sleeping next to a wagon. There's like cowboy outlaw murderers. And that was sort of like, it's like major cities now where there's like, that's a bad area where a lot of crime happens. And this is kind of a safer area. It was like that in the Old West.
That was America.
Yeah, that was America. Yeah, all of America was like that.
America was the bad neighborhood.
You can go to Canada or Mexico, but America's kind of the bad area to be in. You don't want to be in America after dark. But this was it. And he was sleeping alone, trying to, did you watch Buster Scruggs?
No, I didn't. But I've played Red Dead Redemption 2. Is it anything like that?
So I know how dangerous it is.
I mean, you got to save before you go to sleep. I know that in the Old West.
If you're going to be going from town to the mountains to fight a tribe, you're going to need a horse, because walking's going to take, it's going to be like actually walking then.
You might want to go to the Ubisoft online store and buy something.
Yeah.
But the old prayer, like they would kneel at bed, if I die before I wake, I'm glad I saved my progress.
Mother and father in the doorway, arms crossed, being like, he's a good boy. He's a good boy. And it's Zelda and Link. Just glad I remember their names. A blow dart would have hit me in the neck right now. Edward Doheny, who would one day be one of the richest men in the world, was at this point spending his nights out in the pitch black desert wilderness, gun in hand, not sleeping, waiting for unfriendly Native American tribes or regular American troublemakers to stumble upon him. That was how he spent his nights. Like, he was a stocky, choleric man and didn't seem to be a rough and tumble.
Stocky, choleric man. He had cholera?
They called him choleric in the oil baron of the Southwest.
What does that mean? He has cholera?
Maybe, probably has cholera, yeah.
Okay.
But he was, the tall, kind of, I don't know if stocky was the word. I think lanky.
He's choleric.
He's choleric. He wasn't like a rough and tumble outlaw character. It's a kind of amazing he comes out of those days unattacked.
Well, he might have killed a man in Laredo, Texas.
Yeah, well, maybe that he...
we didn't know you were a singing waiter.
That's right.
Drop your pitchforks.
Notice I said unattacked and not unharmed. While working a claim in New Mexico, Doheny slipped and fell into an open mine shaft and fractured both his legs. This put him out of the game for a month or so, but this would not be a time of inactivity. Doheny used his downtime to study mining laws and soon became the leading authority on mining law in the country. He even took the bar of New Mexico and was a qualified lawyer on the subject. So this is a guy, before he even gets to what we know him for, already smarter than most people doing what he's doing.
He knows how to sue anybody.
He knows where the book is. The book, you pull them off the shelf and you're like, I know a court case the judge's going to love this. He knows the book. In 1883, Doheny moves to Kingston, New Mexico, where he meets Carrie Luella Wilkins, whom he marries in August of 83. The next year, baby Eileen joins them. Also in Kingston, he meets a fellow prospector named Charles Canfield, who would become his future partner. But at this time, Edward worked on developing his own claims. He invested with some partners in a new mining company and extended himself as a manager of a few mining outfits. But even doing all this, the Dohenys were teetering on the edge of poverty for some years in Kingston. And also, I didn't add this in there, but I know that he was bored. He was just wanted to be out in the field, but he was starting a family, and it was hard to do both. And you see later in his life that He thinks he can have it all. He thinks he can go out and prospect and also have a family who doesn't see him for months at a time because he's out prospecting and mining and dealing with. So he loses that family basically because he wants to be a rich guy who's doing the stuff flow. He wants a family too. Obviously, we see why, because his family is pretty much at this point. This is when he starts realizing, oh, my entire family that I grew up with is gone. Nobody remembers me as a little baby. So I'm all alone. So he has a draw to both sides, but you can see clearly that he picks being rich.
Now, is this in There Will Be Blood? I don't remember. Does he use the cattle blower thing to find oil? Which am I getting them mixed up?
I mean, the blood is the oil of a human. So yeah, Anton Sugar for sure finds the oil. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to strike you. After many failed ventures in New Mexico and heeding the advice of many partners and pals, including Canfield, in October of 1891, Edward Doheny decided to pack up and chase the gold rush to California, the gold rush that had happened 50 years earlier. He didn't bring much money with him. In fact, like by the fall of 1892, Edward Doheny was flat broke when he gets to Los Angeles. Absolutely no money in his pocket. And that's he's going to, in a few years, even like by the end of that year, be one of the richest men around. But he did bring a wealth of skills and practical know-how that would be invaluable to his future venture. So he doesn't have money, but because of all of the mining and silver mining he's done and claims and mining laws, all that is just sitting in his head. So by the time he finally gets to oil, what did they say? That luck is when preparation meets opportunity?
I wouldn't know.
Oh, I'm none of those three things.
I mean, we want to go back to Link and Zelda, that triforce of what we're talking about here. I have none of them.
When the opportunity would arise, he would have enough know-how in his brain to know what to do with finding oil, finding tar in the ground. In Southern California, as you had just stated, oil exploration had been going on for at least 30 years before Doheny started digging around LA. By the 1880s, there was 100 oil-producing wells operating around the city, probably in Newhall, I would imagine. A man named W.A. Goodyear wrote a report for the California State Mining Bureau in 1888 listing every known oil well in the state. This would be Doheny's guide, and his fortune was truly thanks to this report that this guy wrote. Like, just stating, this is where all the oil is. That was another thing that was like, oh, I know how to operate based on this map, knowing where to go and where not to go, basically. Doheny and his family were living in a cheap hotel on the west side of town. I'm not really sure where. And one day he saw a wagon with the wheels covered in an oil-like substance, what we now recognize as tar. He talked to the driver and found out that...
Well, we now recognize as an Oscar-winning performance.
Almost an Oscar-nominated performance.
An Oscar-considered but never really expected to win performance of Tar on the Wheels.
Oil. No. So he talked to the driver and found out that the material came from a spot near Westlake Park, which we now call MacArthur Park.
Okay, something funny's about to be said. Certainly this wasn't deleted. Something funny's about to be said.
Doheny went over to Westlake Park and saw the oil coming out of the ground. Do you want to say the line?
Hang on.
Let me get in the zone.
I haven't been on stage in a while. Hang on. My mother-in-law. So
take my wife, please.
So I just flew in. My arms are tired.
My arms are planes. No. My arms are planes.
So normally what he discovered that this was at MacArthur Park was black tar. Normally there's just black tar heroin there.
Boo! Boo! Boo!
Bring on LA Not So Confidential. And that's how it went at the live show.
And that's my recreation of Sunday night.
I wrote that line. For anyone who laughed there live at Greg saying it, let's give, Greg and the big studios are always trying to take away credit from the writers.
He's sort of a, not Alan Sherman. What the hell is Dick Van Dyke writes for Alan Sherman?
Is it Alan? No, Alan Brady.
Alan Brady. Yeah, I'm Alan Brady and you're Rosemary.
Rosemary.
Thank you.
Rosemary.
Thank you.
I'm the one who's made to type everything up. Yes.
Yeah, I did that line, a much better version of that line. That I perfected. I just put my sauce on it. My unique perspective. I just put on that. And people laughed and I wanted to. It's not that funny, guys. Come on. Guys, come on. It's not that funny.
The walls started shaking when that line was said.
A flash of Beatlemania.
Yeah, people ripped up their seats. The haunted dolls in the back started screaming as well.
Yeah, those haunted dolls were. I looked over once and saw them. Like, don't look at them again. They were quite scary. Doheny saw the black gold, and supposedly he knew he was going to make a fortune from it. Through the years of him working different fields and seeing how different industries with heavy machinery require oil and fuel, he knew this substance could be sold. He knew that it could be refined to produce the more valuable petroleum oil, and here it was bubbling up from the ground.
Is there still oil, tar seeping up in MacArthur Park? Well, I mean,
no.
Wait, hang on. My
mother-in-law,
my wife,
Hi, my wife.
Oh, my wife. Do I make you horny, baby?
Is that what's happening in Volcano?
Well, that's a volcano.
Explain the difference to me. Now, I thought oil came from volcanoes.
Wait a minute. Are volcanoes not just dead dinosaurs? No, yeah, I think there was something going on at the La Brea tar pit. Well, that happened at the volcano. Okay, I think there was steam coming out of MacArthur Park.
That's right.
And then the volcano came out of the La Brea tar pits.
And we have to remind our viewers who haven't seen the fantastically bad movie Volcano from the 90s about a volcano growing out of Los Angeles. All takes place on Wilshire pretty much.
Yeah.
Like a straight line between
between MacArthur Park.
It's like MacArthur Park leading all the way to the ocean along Wilshire the entire way. It's pretty great.
Oh, it was a tax break to film on Wilshire at the time.
They had tore everything up to make the red line. So they're like, since everything's out, let's just go ahead and make a movie. So he partnered with Canfield and found a cheap property on the outskirts of downtown LA since they couldn't afford to lease anything in Westlake Park, which seems to be the problem now. The spot they leased was in Echo Park off Glendale Boulevard at Colton Street and Patton Street, in particular 1419 Colton Street, which is where I would go for the Echo Park indoor swimming pool.
Huh.
And
which was just tar.
I swim in it. It's funny to think that at this spot, they had dug into the earth for oil. I wonder if once the oil was all done, they're like, we'll just fill it with chlorine water now. Just go swimming. I don't care.
Even if there's still tar in it, who cares?
Who cares?
Let's let the kids play.
It's Echo Park.
Is that the one near Echo Park Lake?
It's walkable distance. It's closer to like Leo's Tacos, like Glendale and Temple. It's
okay. I know where that is.
If I don't know if me and Edric ever took you to Bernie's Jr., but it's closer to Bernie's Jr.
I don't go to your socialist restaurants. Always trying to Bernie pill me.
We barter there. It's a bartering system.
They don't take money; they take hugs.
And if you have a copy of the Communist Manifesto, we keep getting ours stolen, so we just leave it in the library, which is for everybody.
We keep getting ours shared, not stolen.
Yes, someone shares it for longer than usual. So there.
Okay, so there.
Anyways, it's funny thinking that growing up, I thought Echo Park was only famous for
Mi Vida Loca,
the gangs, the Hillside Strangler leaving a body, and now as an adult, Max Sennett was around the corner.
Right. Which was comedy oil.
A lot of Three Stooges were shot along the road down to the Park Lake. Yeah. Or they were killed around there. And oil. Edward Doheny strikes oil.
Yeah.
Not very far away from where I'm at. That's what happens when you don't teach your kids history.
This is what happens when you don't force your kids to listen to LA Meekly.
Yeah. Anyways, Doheny and Canfield used their skills as miners to seek oil from saturated ground. It took them 38 days of using hand tools. Now he had to get his hands dirty. He couldn't just I'm a prospector. Like now he has to he was digging with a shovel and Canfield was moving debris with a windlass. Before they a windlass. It's I don't know.
Is this a tool in Zelda also?
Yeah. You have to trade a key for it.
You don't know anything about it.
You don't trade anything where you don't give a key up.
You might give a spirit orb, okay? Or some Deku nuts. Did he have Deku nuts?
But you never give a key away.
Never give a key away.
He made a double.
There might be a Cocorico inside.
I'm not going to correct you. The person that's going to correct you is not in this room right now.
They're all listening.
I said Link. That's the deepest knowledge of Zelda. Metroid's in the game. It's Lady too, right?
I mean, how many Yoshis does it take to defeat Ganon? I've been playing Zelda. Anyway.
You're a giant dork. So they struck oil 155 feet deep into the earth. This was November.
Imagine digging, with
a shovel.
Yeah, and a windlass.
But
trying to dig a hole at the beach. I could get 3 feet down. I'm like, boy, oh boy. My arms are tired. My arms are tired. I must have just flown in.
I think I'm going to hit the crust of the earth soon. I'm 3 feet deep in in Venice Beach.
I think I can hear a Bruce Lee movie.
I think I hear the sun rising on the other side.
It's just someone's DVD player that fell into the sand.
Yeah, so they 155 feet deep in the earth, November of 1892. Once they struck it, they began pumping out 7 barrels a day by hand. At this point, Canfield wasn't really convinced that oil was the future and bailed out. After digging like 155 feet deep with his pal, was like, this is stupid. I'm going to go back to mining silver in the mountains.
7 barrels?
7 barrels, boring.
It's weird that because I kept thinking like there must be a standard size of barrel because everything is described as this many barrels.
A unit
day.
of measurement,
right.
Yeah. It's like box size.
A king's barrel. It's the length of, it's what one king would wear if you were deposed.
Well, 15 shoeboxes equals 1 barrel, but 1 liquid barrel.
How many stones is it? Can I trade my key for it?
Yeah, don't trade a key.
I need a Deku nut.
I like to kick Link in his Deku nuts. Something, ha ha ha.
Dare you.
Anyways, Canfield leaves. Doheny partners with some
You Goron. Okay, anyway.
Canfield leaves. Doheny teams up with some new partners, and they drill 30 feet deeper and hit a point where they had a good amount of oil flow. This is considered to be the first successful oil strike in Los Angeles. With successful, obviously.
There was one in Newhall.
Successful meaning like the entire city changes after this one.
Yeah, well, it did start a brush, but
that guy doesn't have a good American name.
Yeah,
His name is Pico.
Pico.
Andres
Pico.
How do you even spell that? How many letters are in it? No, Doheny. I know how to spell that. Duiea.
I need a good American name from Ireland.
O'Houlihan. I don't know.
Yeah, not one that's been in this country for 300 years already.
1892, like they like the Irish.
Yeah.
They're loving them. From the book Oil Baron of the Southwest from Martin Ansell, which I read for research, he said, Doheny was not the first person to extract oil in the city, and he was certainly not the first person to experiment with petroleum he found near Westlake Park, but he was the first person who managed successfully to promote its use at the precise moment that the railroads and other industries recognized oil as a viable fuel.
We bring it back once again to you either want to be the first or the third. The first people were like the Native Americans.
Yeah.
The second person was Andres Pico.
Yeah.
The third person who is like, okay, I can commercialize this is Edward Doheny.
Yeah. But also like it's a lot of right place at the right time. Like if the railroads weren't ready for it, I don't think it would have been as successful.
Right.
Like the railroads had to develop at a speed to line up perfectly with
And
Doheny.
cars were not too far away.
Exactly. They weren't too far away. So this was like the right time.
And they're coming at you very slowly and you're still going to get hit by it because you don't know what to do.
Because reading about his first, I'll get into it, but he kind of pumped out more than what he can give away because it was like being used for machines at the time before like railroads were like, what are you doing with that?
Steam?
No, we're doing fine with coal. It'll last forever. The first,
Just like oil.
Yeah, just like oil. Iraq War was all about
coal.
Freedom. It wasn't about anything else.
We needed their steam mines.
Yeah, we This is all about steam. No blood for steam. This first strike was part of a larger well, later to be known as a Los Angeles City oil field, and it's believed to have run from Hoover to just below Dodger Stadium. So it was a pretty big chunk of land.
Where's Hoover?
Hoover, if I understand correctly, is just around Alvarado. So Alvarado is the big street that runs through Echo Park. Hoover runs alongside it. So I imagined Hoover's just over the hill if they're talking about the Hoover that I know.
All right.
But Hoover starts around.
Not the Hoover I know.
That guy does not like stuff. Anyways, within the same year, word had gotten out about the oil near the well, and 9 other oil drill operations started up in the surrounding area. Doheny and his partner, Henry Ailman, had 2 of them. Technology was advancing and making it easier to drill for oil, but even then the problems were twofold. None of these initial wells were producing very much oil, and at the time there was no market for oil. Only a few companies were at a stage of using fuel oil. Doheny was almost stuck with barrels of immovable oil, but luckily a fertilizer plant was looking for heavy oil for their machines. So from there, Doheny continued to push forward and take every win he could scrounge up and use it towards a bigger win, selling oil to factories and using the money to buy bigger pieces of land to drill for oil, continue hitting jackpots that way.
Businessman.
That's
the singing waiter in him coming out.
Yeah. He knows how to get a tip. This oil man really knows how to work a tip.
Hello, my money. Hello.
They don't want to hear the Beatles. They have longer hair. They want to hear the Kinks. Oh, they have too long hair. They want to hear a Black Sabbath song. That's how you get a tip.
They want to hear a Black Eyed Peas song before the show starts. That's what I thought.
I don't know how to work a tip. By this point, the sunny, picturesque views of Los Angeles were being ruined by these black steel oil derricks. While most industries in Los Angeles by the turn of the century were still, I feel like 1890s, a lot of stuff was still kind of pastoral, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But this felt like the first, this felt like the first big, ugly, modern industry thing that happens to Los Angeles.
Right.
I might be wrong about that.
I mean, I can't think of what else. I mean, what is uglier? I mean, mining. Well, this is mining in a way, but like,
but mining would happen underground for everyone to look out and see. Like, there's palm trees, but there's also oil derricks, and now the sky.
But
is
it also there
gray.
wasn't mining going on unless
not
you consider this.
Yeah.
But like,
I'm trying to think of like
what is uglier of an industry than oil?
And I can't think of one. I think
maybe the singing waiter, industrial complex.
Yeah, because everything else seems to happen indoors, like newspaper plants and all those big heavy machines. That's all in a big building, and the building's beautiful. Like I'm trying to think of. I mean, the railroads were something to look at least and ride. So like I don't know. I feel like oil derricks serve no purpose for the regular person. They're just kind of gross, and they stick out like a sore thumb. Like I had a photo. The first photo I used was Huntington Beach, the coastline, but like there's just oil derricks lining it now. Like the postcard's gone.
It really is a blight on the planet.
Yeah, it is a blight on the planet. We shouldn't be drinking the blood of the planet, but whatever. It's fine. It's too late now. Tragedy hit Doheny in December of that year, 1892, like months after like striking the first oil well. His daughter, Eileen, who was sick her whole life, dies due to complications due to rheumatic fever. The next year, as the still grieving parents, they welcome their son, Edward Jr., as they would call him, Ned. In 1899, Daddy Doheny started chatting it up with a telephone operator at his company, a woman who had the same name as his wife. Her name was Carrie. So he started calling this new Carrie Estelle, which was her middle name. So what I read, it wasn't clear if they were canoodling, hanky-panky, having an affair. But later that year, Edward and his wife get a divorce after years of dealing with a rocky relationship. Custody of 6-year-old Ned was awarded to Edward, and his wife, Carrie, was so distraught that she killed herself the next year. So not long after that, Edward would remarry the new Carrie, Estelle, and she would raise Ned as her own son. This is a man, like I said before, no sympathy. I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for him losing a daughter. You push your wife away. It's very sad that she killed herself. But also, like, thinking about how many people in his family up to this point had already died and had gone, and now he's starting a new family with a new son.
Now I'm starting to wonder, did he push the other parts of his family away? Like I found a new mom and dad on the phone line.
Yeah, on the phone line, I found a new mom and dad, and I'm fine.
1-800-MOMMY.
It's not 1-800-MOMMY. You ask Sarah to connect you to 19 MOMY.
Sarah,
Manhattan.
Yeah, Sarah, can you connect me with Pound Cake Mommy?
Right away, sir.
Oh, Sarah, I like the way you say that.
Yeah.
Do you want to be my mommy?
I was watching something with Helen Mirren in the 80s, and I like Helen Mirren, and I called her girlfriend mommy. And as soon as I said it out loud, I'm like, oh, damn it. So this was either 1900 or 1901, the year that Doheny had become a millionaire. By this time, he had 19 of the 155 oil wells in the city, and his companies could pump out 350 barrels a day. His closest competitor could only do half of that. So he's like leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of people. After success in LA in May of 1900, Canfield and Doheny ventured together along the Mexican Central Railroad prospecting for oil. They found it near Tampico, Mexico, and it was so abundant in oil deposits that they bought 400,000 acres of land and paid upwards of $1 million building a pipeline before they even knew if it was worth building a pipeline. Yeah, if like there might have only been a little bit, but they built a pipeline being like, there's so much oil here. Luckily, there was, and it turns out that Castellano Field, which they just bought, is remembered as one of the most prosperous oil wells of all time.
I think he planted it. I think
he probably planted it. He spit it out. Like he Shawshanked that.
Just like it's like those evolutionists planting those dinosaur bones in Cabazon.
trying to fool everybody. We all know that dinosaurs and people were around at the same time.
Yeah. Singing at restaurants together.
They pumped out from this Castellano oil field, they pumped out 70,000 barrels of oil a day, and it produced enough oil for the partners to pump for 9 years. When it was all done, it had produced 800,000 barrels of oil.
A lot of
wild.
I mean, I assume that's a lot of oil. How many barrels do I go through a day? Like
little barrels?
30, 40, yeah, many barrels.
Doheny and company went on to strike wells in New Mexico and Peru, and expanded his land in Mexico, buying up 1.6 million acres of it for industrial development. I read somewhere, I don't know how accurate this was, that he was kind of responsible for a lot of Mexico developing because areas of industry were building up near his oil wells because it had needed so much workers. Boom towns, yeah. But I know that, he had one of the largest fleets of oil tankers in the world by this point. He was so rich that during the Mexican Revolution of 1910, Doheny was able to afford a private army to protect the oil wells, which shows you what side of the Mexican Revolution he was on in the war of the poor people versus the rich
oil.
people. I also read somewhere that he like really benefited from the early days of the Mexican Revolution because there was so much confusion happening that he was sort of like, I don't know how much land he was like kind of, I don't really understand how, but I know that he certainly benefited from the confusion of the revolution.
Weird. Rich people benefiting from war?
How is that possible? A war of the classes?
It's almost warfare? Like it was engineered by them
it's very
so that they could benefit.
Very strange. By 1919, Doheny had drilled thousands of wells and controlled many oil companies fit to handle production, most of which by this point were consolidated into the Pan American Petroleum Company. It was now 1920. Pan Am. It owns the sky too. There's oil in the sky.
Cloud oil.
Yeah. Just suck that cloud dry.
The darker ones is where the oil is.
It was now 1920, and Doheny was one of the wealthiest men in America, with a fortune estimated at a time at $150 million, what now is $2.2 billion he could buy and ruin Twitter.
Like
that. And he would bring a sink to the first meeting, and people would be like, this is going to die, isn't it? By 1925, Doheny would be richer than John D. Rockefeller, who was alive at the time and probably did not like that news. But Rockefeller would take his kids to the Bob Baker thing, and it would be okay. And they're like, oh, life as a poor person is great.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah,
the Rockefeller kids.
He brought Bob Baker to entertain the kids. Doheny also transcended into legend of villain territory when he became the enemy/fictionalized subject of...
I like the enemy. My wife. Just
Peanuts.
flew in.
Airplane food.
Dating is hard.
In Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, in particular, dating.
More than other places, it's particularly hard. Everyone is shallow here. I've talked to 8 people. That's it. I only stay on my block. He became a villain of Upton Sinclair, who was that's how you become a true villain of history, is when Upton Sinclair hates you.
If you get on his bad side.
If you work for the meat industry or you drill for oil, you get remembered forever as being a bad guy of the people.
Upton Sinclair's worst enemy.
Yeah.
Upton Sinclair was running for governor or mayor? Am I remembering correctly?
Governor.
He was like the Bernie.
He was Bernie, yeah. I mean, that's what the movie Mank is about, him running and Mank taking his side, and then you watch as a bunch of wealthy old rich guys crush that by lying to everybody. And it's never happened again.
Bernie Sanders should write more books. You're right.
Should start a podcast. The Upton Sinclair podcast.
What's Upton? Wait a minute. Is Upton Sinclair Oil?
Oh my God. The Teapot Dome scandal.
The Teapot Dome scandal, everybody.
So Upton Sinclair wrote Oil partly based on Doheny and the Teapot Dome scandal. Also, Oil was what Paul Thomas Anderson read when he was getting ready to write There Will Be Blood. So Daniel Plainview is a version of Edward Doheny.
Have you read that?
No, I want to read more Upton Sinclair.
I want to do too.
I've never read. I didn't read The Jungle. The Jungle, which... Where's the typical Daniel answer? Where's the trees? Where's the Panthers?
Lions?
Yeah, where's the lions? Where's the Panthers? This is a Tarzan story. I can feel it in my bones.
Like 350 pages in, I think he's getting ready to buy tickets to Africa.
I remember my friend Scott in high school was very much about The Jungle, and he was like, you got to read it. It's gross. And I remember getting it from the library and then never reading it, and I regret that because
I was assigned it in some class in college, and I was like, I'm going to read The Jungle. Yeah. And I never touched it.
Yeah, you never touched it. I love when people talk about it. Like many of my favorite books, I like it more when smart people talk about it, but me sitting to read Huckleberry Finn is quite hard.
Yeah, the hard to read book Huckleberry Finn.
It's hard. He talks funny.
He speaks with a southern accent.
Ain't no way I'm going to do that. Who is this kid? Just left school.
Where did he learn his diction?
It's a great book. One of the best writers that we've ever made. We're now going to talk about the Teapot Dome scandal, which sounds so much more grand than what it is, which is just bribing the U.S. government for land. That's it.
That's another song he would sing as a singing waiter. I'm a little teapot, don't look into it. He was a singing waiter for fun for his whole life.
Here is my handle. Here's a bag of cash.
Here is my handle. Here is my bride.
One of these two guys. Oh, I lost it. Something about one of these two guys is going to die. Will it be my son?
Be my Oh, wait, wrong teapot.
So Doheny wanted to curry favor with the federal government to get rights to drill for oil in 2 counties. One was Kern County at Elk Hills. The other was Buena Vista Hills near Bakersfield. This land was owned by the U.S. Navy, and this contract would allow him to supply oil to the military in Pearl Harbor. And it's funny that Pearl Harbor had such a stain on it that every time you see it, you're like, oh! But it was a place.
Well, I wonder if I guess he didn't get the contract. Oh, he did, but then lost it.
Yeah.
But
no, you got the. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, but did he I'm wondering, is the oil that was exploding in Pearl Harbor, was that Doheny oil? That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. It was. I'll get into it, but there was
oil pumped from Los Angeles was blowing up in Pearl Harbor
and burning soldiers' skins off when it would hit. Yeah, Daniel, it was Doheny oil. This is Doheny brand oil burning my skin off. You're a pig.
That's what the Japanese soldiers were saying as they flew by. Wow, Doheny brand
oil.
Wow,
it burns faster than most.
Could we get you on record saying that?
Yeah, let me just land this thing. No landing.
Let me just land it really fast.
They taught us how to fly. That crash course was real fast. They didn't even bother telling us how to land it.
They put the crash in crash course. It was their choice to crash, so we can make fun of them.
Yeah, they didn't feel pain because they were so high on meth.
Were they?
They were high on something.
Wasn't that Nazis?
Both.
That were? Oh, both of them.
I mean, it was the same time, so they could have shared. They had the same source. They had the same dealer.
Their same dealer was somewhere in Russia. I don't know. Well, I guess Russia wouldn't have helped them.
Yeah, the
Italy. Italy was
Italy. Yeah,
the halfway point.
And this is halfway officially. So both of us, this is a fair walk for both of us.
I guess it's not halfway. It's closer to Germany.
Yeah, but don't. So Doheny, he wants to buy this federal land to drill for oil. He sends his son Ned and his personal chauffeur Theodore Hugh Plunkett to Washington Hotel in Washington Hotel, D.C. I thought I erased that.
Oh, no. Yeah, you did. I put it back in your files.
I really do have a memory of being like, I'm not going to say that to him so you can get the credit.
I hope you left the other thing I put in there.
Washington Hotel in Washington Hotel, D.C. That's what you sound like. I'm so clever. I'm going to punch you. So he sends the two friends, and they're only friends. He sends these two friends. They're really good pals and roommates, and they're only friends. He sends them. They have a website called Only Friends. To hand deliver a briefcase full of $10,000 cash to the Secretary of Interior, Albert Bacon Fall, to quote unquote convince him to give them the contract. In 1924, this scandal broke and was one of the key events of what became known as the Teapot Dome scandal. Why is it called the Teapot Dome scandal? Well,
yeah, why is it?
How come? The other man involved in this scandal was Harry F. Sinclair of Sinclair.
You skipped over
Dino.
the joke I wrote in it. Okay.
No, it's in here somewhere.
Oh, okay, good.
Another man who tried to do a similar thing was Harry F. Sinclair, Sinclair Dino Oil. It's the Sinclair Oil has the dinosaur out front, right?
Mm-hmm. Upton Sinclair Dino Oil.
Yeah, that's their brothers. He had a similar deal with Albert Bacon Fall for land in Teapot Dome, Wyoming, which is where the name comes from. It's not just a name meant to confuse Daniel in high school.
That's not the joke I wrote.
Yeah, no, you're right.
The joke I wrote was really funny.
Do you want to say it?
You'll have to listen to the live episode.
Yeah, where I could stumble over it there.
Yeah.
Doheny, Ned, and Plunkett were all indicted, but were eventually acquitted of any charges because rich people. The only one to face any consequences was Albert Bacon Fall, who took the rap for it.
Come on. There's
another. The Bacon Fall.
Thank you.
He took the Bacon Fall. That's a Daniel line. It's like when you can hear a Beatles song and know who wrote it.
Right. This sounds like Ringo.
It's a movie reference. It's a Criterion movie reference, so Greg must have. It's a great joke. It's a Back to the Future reference. It's a Daniel joke.
This one's for the plebes.
Yeah. This one's for the snobs. According to the Ventura...
We're a real snobs and slobs podcast.
According to the Ventura County Historical Society, who put out a memorial issue for the Dohenys, which is really just a puff piece, there are claims that Doheny was innocent of the Teapot Dome bribery because he was never connected to those leases that they were accused of bribing for. He wasn't trying to buy government land to drill. Instead, he was actively trying to be the supplier of oil for the Navy. He built, the Pearl Harbor oil storage depot with his own money. When, like we were talking about, when the base was attacked, it was Doheny's oil in the tankers. They say this was the actual...
That's so crazy.
They're basically saying that it was a fair deal. He just got caught up with Sinclair and he was another oil man. But then again, where does the bag of cash fall into all of this?
Okay, puff piece.
Yeah, okay, puff piece. Try to account for the bag of oil and two dead men.
Right. Well, the two dead men was a different thing.
It could have been.
It was a different thing, indirectly caused by the bag of cash.
The bag of cash, yeah. Anyways, Doheny returned to LA and was greeted by 400 supporters and the mayor, who called him a quote unquote great American patriot. So brave for trying to bribe the government. Hero.
To fly that close to the sun and yet so far from your own son. But that's so... I don't know, because when I read that part about he was greeted by the mayor as a hero, like I keep thinking about like Donald Trump and all these people who are like, oh, you defrauded the IRS?
Yeah.
You're a hero.
You are my president. You are American president.
And I keep thinking like, oh, well, that's like a modern thing of trying to cheat the government. And then I remembered, no,
it's a forever thing. I want to say even a forefathers thing. Nevertheless, this scandal ate away at Doheny, who was now in his late 60s. In by 1925, he started to slow down and centralize his holdings. He created the role of vice president and general manager for his son. Ned was on his way to the top at this point. He married the daughter of an executive of the Santa Fe Railroad, the daughter of one of the executives, when he was 20, and attended USC around the same time, where he earned a degree in business. And then later, he was elected to the board of trustees and was the president of the Alumni Association. He had a lot going on for him. He served as a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy during World War I, and he ended up joining the family oil business as a company vice president, which is how he got caught up in the whole Teapot Dome scandal. It's a classic Nepo baby. Famous for being famous, a real Kardashian of the day, as I said in the live show, but not Kim, like Chloe, or like a Kendall Jenner type.
Or like the drummer from Blink-182.
Like the drummer from Blink-182, like a hanger-on.
My favorite Kardashian
is the drummer from Blink-182.
Tom Green or whatever his name is.
Travis Barker. It could have been Pete Davidson. It was, for you, sure. For you, I bet it was Kanye West for a while.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Point. What do you mean for a while? You're saying it in past tense?
In past terms? How come?
What has he said now?
Did he say something about Catholics? Because I won't stand for that. From the trial, Edward Doheny was acquitted for the bribery charge, but was ordered by the courts to repay $47 million in settlements, taxes, and penalties. I remind you that
it's a $10,000 bribe.
Yeah, $10,000 bribe. And also, he had 20 years earlier had $2.2 billion, and it's only gone up since then. So $47 million is give me $5 out of your wallet, of which you have $100. It's nothing. But he was drowning in lawsuits by stockholders in his companies and became a reclusive invalid at his house at 8 Chester Place near USC for the last 3 years of his life, which would end in September of 1935.
This is Father Doheny.
Father Doheny, yeah. Right. One of the biggest titans of industry in Los Angeles died with 2 stains of scandal as his name: the Teapot Dome scandal and the double murder of Ned Doheny and chauffeur Hugh Plunkett, which they talked about in LA Not So Confidential. We also talked about it as well.
Yeah, you can listen to our Greystone Mansion haunted episode, I believe that was from. Yeah. And also when we release the live episode, you can hear more about the Ned story.
Yeah, and the Plunkett story. This man forever changed the course of LA history, and it's weird because it was going to be somebody. He was the first person who knew what to do with it, but he wasn't the only one out there. But because it was him, Los Angeles history happened this way, the way that it happened in our lifetime. And not the multiverse.
In our lifetime, in the 1910s.
In the 1910s, yeah. He's one of those people that...
He really is up there with Mulholland
and Chandler and
Griffith, Jake Griffith.
Yeah, Griffith's another one.
Griffith's
William Parker's another one of those people that history in Los Angeles is completely different after this one police chief took over.
Right. I'm trying to think of who the other people are that are on the mount.
There's certainly more. And they're not all white men. I'm sure
the Romanoff guy.
Yeah. I'm sure the
Picos, the
Sepulvedas, you're right.
Which are still white people.
They're still white people. They're still more European.
Partially, some of them are less white than others.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, he's one of those people that just their stamp is on Los Angeles forever because of, one guy found oil and knew exactly what to do with it. And now we're here. Lankersham's another one, yeah.
Another white guy.
Yeah.
Isaac Newton Van Nuys, a series of white guys.
Yeah. Every street is named after a white guy in Los Angeles that probably should have their face on some kind of
do not serve list.
Do not serve, yeah. 86th from every bar in the valley.
So that's Doheny.
Yeah. That's Doheny, baby.
That's Doheny for you. He eats up a lot of the, much like his clients at the Singing Waiter restaurant, he eats up most of the story of oil in Los Angeles. Yes. But there were other oil fields that he was not really a part of. I don't think he was drilling in the ones.
Yeah, he wasn't the sole.
No, it wasn't just him. There was a lot of different drilling going on.
When you come across somebody who you're kind of familiar with and you're like, oh, he was an oil man. I know, I'm sure you can talk about Gilmore.
We've talked a little bit about Gilmore in the past, but not in it when we were talking about Gilmore Stadium and that sort of thing. But not to be crude, but I'm going to tell you about some of the most important oil fields we haven't covered yet in the past. So in all, there are 68 oil fields within the LA basin.
Okay.
So in this general area underground, there are 68 different distinct oil fields, with 10 of those considered highly productive, with capacities of over 1 billion barrels that you could get out of them, making LA the most prolific petroleum basin in the world on an oil to sediment ratio, however you want to take that.
I mean, we have, I don't know about other places, but we have it bubbling from the ground, so it makes it kind of easy.
Is there a Saudi Arabia tar pit? I don't think so. I guess it would still be the La Brea, although in Arabic.
Yeah.
The whatever tar pit. I guess it would all be in Arabic. Anyway, so one of these places is the place that creates the titular brea of the La Brea tar pits in English, in Spanish. And it's officially known. So where the La Brea tar pits is, that's the Salt Lake oil field. That's where it's coming from. It rests 600 feet underground and stretches roughly from Wilshire on the south, Highland on the east, Beverly on the north, and San Vicente on the west. So this is a very big area. It's not even the biggest, but this is a very big area that includes the La Brea tar pits, obviously, LACMA, the Peterson, the Academy Museum, Park La Brea, the Beverly Center, Pan Pacific Park, and of course, the Grove and Farmers Market, which is where this all began for this oil field.
Are you going to talk about the hidden oil derrick?
A little bit. Okay. There's a lot of them around town, but there's one in particular near there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We might be thinking of different ones that I don't even know about.
Yeah.
Hang on. We lift up a pillow.
Yeah.
Hidden oil derrick.
How'd you get here?
I just wanted to fit in. Squirt, squirt. So...
Oil derrick, you're looking so handsome.
Oil derrick, have you been watching me shower? Squirt, squirt. So in the late 1800s, early 1900s, this area around the Grove and the Grove, the Eternal Grove.
Yeah.
Around not Rick Astley. What's his name? The guy who wanted to be mayor, but he's horrible and he lost. Rick Caruso. Not Rick Astley. So I
almost said Rick Fox. Than somebody else altogether.
In the late 1800s, early 1900s, this area was owned by a dairy farmer named Arthur F. Gilmore, who clampeted hard one day when he was drilling for a water well on his land and outgushed water for cars instead around the turn of the century. So around the year 1900, he struck oil on this land.
Yeah.
And he's quickly like, milk.
Milk lemonade.
Around the corner, oil's made.
I gotta go to the doctor. I've been crapping oil for a month now.
This well I dug is a little polluted. You haven't been drinking out of your lemonade well, have you? So pivoted away from milk and into milk for cars and formed the A.F. Gilmore Company to start harvesting his newfound money milk. I kept making everything into milk.
Yeah, you do that.
That's what I do. I spin milk into gold. Rumple milk skin.
He's a white guy, yeah.
Rumple milk toast.
Yeah.
That's me. He also leased out parts of his land to other companies to drill, seemingly the first of which being the Salt Lake Oil Company, which is why this particular oil field is known as the Salt Lake Field.
Okay.
More and more companies started flocking to this patch of land, and more drilling started with its peak in 1908 when the Salt Lake Oil Field was producing 4.5 million barrels of oil a year.
That's crazy.
By 1916, there were 500 wells sticking out of an area I could have driven through in 3 minutes with the traffic of 1916. Like, it's not a huge area.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of land, but like without traffic, like you could throw. I mean, I can throw really far, but you could walk pretty easily from one end to the other. And for there to be 500 oil wells sticking out of this area.
If you look at photos of that era,
it's crazy.
It's crazy how many oil derricks
Yeah.
they are in such a small area.
Well, wait till we get to one of the other places I'm talking about where a lot of those pictures are from. It's like triplets inside of a fetus.
Yeah.
Or a womb.
Womb. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I don't know about it.
I'm not a woman. I don't know about bodies inside of bodies inside of bodies.
And babies come in where they come from. But this boom came fast and quick because by the mid-1920s, they had already sucked most of the oil the technology of the day allowed them to from the land. So wells started being taken down even by then, and houses and businesses were being put there instead.
Yeah.
That is until around 1960 when technology advanced to the point where they could drill deeper, but also sideways. So even though there were now a bunch of people living in the Fairfax area, they could put a new well in one spot and drink the milkshakes right from underneath people's houses.
Wow.
Which people were not that happy about.
No.
No, that's my milkshake. A technology nobody could foresee any consequences of. Land started being leased to the Buttram Oil Company, and all the oil people kept making money again, which is what really mattered.
Right.
Until March 24th, 1985. Oil drilling causes methane to be released, which wasn't a problem before in a huge open field, but by 1985, people lived in this area and most of the land was paved with concrete.
Right.
As a result, methane built up.
Oh my God.
To a dangerous level, and the Ross Dress for Less on Fairfax exploded.
Oh my God, really?
Miraculously, nobody died, but 21 people were injured, and the Ross was completely destroyed. Grounds for a lawsuit? I got it at Ross.
That's very
That's
funny.
their catchphrase.
I know what their catchphrase is.
I'm sorry, we don't all shop at Nordstrom.
Kohl's.
Yeah.
An explosion at Ross. It organized all the clothes.
Yeah. Put them back on the
Put them
shelves.
back where it belongs.
Back on the hangers.
I like to walk into any Ross now. Like, whoa, did you guys get hit with that methane? Oh, this is just like normally the way a Ross looks. Cool.
Because of this, the whole area was labeled as a potential methane zone, which we're in one right now.
There's like pieces of Ross still falling to the ground.
There might be methane.
This might be potentially hazardous.
Is that a sweater vest?
Ooh, jelly beans.
With the area from the farmer's market to LACMA being a high potential methane zone, which after I eat dinner, to deal with it, they set up ventilation wells to let these gases safely pollute the ozone layer.
Sure.
But of course, these wells weren't properly maintained. So in 1989, on the street near Park La Brea, methane, mud, and water came bursting out of the ground one day and forced 50 businesses to evacuate.
Oh my God.
At the time, McFarland Energy was leasing this land, and after these incidents, they no longer wanted anything to do with the area.
Yeah.
So they were then replaced by Texaco, who kept it for a while until the returns became more and more diminished. So they left, and the Grove was plopped on top of it.
Okay.
Rick Astley's The Grove.
Yeah, Rick Astley.
But there is actually still a well hidden behind the Beverly Center, which is why when you look on a map, the Beverly Center is curved. That's because it was built to curve around an oil well that was there. Is that the one you were talking about?
No, there's one at
There's
the
a lot.
farmer's market that's built inside of it almost looks like the part of a windmill that isn't the windmill, like the part that holds the windmill.
I think I've seen that, but I didn't know that was an oil well.
Yeah,
is it
it's an oil
still
well.
working?
I don't know. I don't think so. I have a feeling that no.
Oh, but there is one in the Apple store.
There's one in the
one's
Apple
working.
store. Yeah. It's in the back room. You have to ask about it.
But now we're going to head a little further south. So that's the Fairfax one.
Uh-huh.
All the way further south to Long Beach.
Signal Hill.
Yes, but also more. The Long Beach area has two of the most important oil fields in LA's oil history contained within it. But let's start with the titular Long Beach oil field, or as it was originally known, the Signal Hill oil field, because
I'm pretty smart. I read a thing once.
I'm pretty smart. I know where Long Beach is. I heard a Snoop Dogg song. So it was called the Signal Hill oil field because it was centered around the neighborhood now known as Signal Hill, which was known as Signal Hill because the Puva tribe used to go to the top of the giant hill there to send signals to others on land and out at sea.
I didn't know that.
Then the Spanish... hold for booze. The Spanish came and named it Loma Central, which was then translated to English as Signal Hill.
Okay.
Have you been on top of Signal Hill?
Yeah, I feel like I have before. Yeah.
It's like a very, because I went there for the hit viral video, but there's like a little park memorializing the oil stuff, but it's crazy. Like,
it's a good vantage point.
Yeah, I sent so many signals on top. My text messages went through so clearly, but when you drive through, it's a neighborhood and there's wells still, like literally in people's backyards. Yeah. It's really crazy.
Wild, yeah.
Oil drilling was first flirted with around the Signal Hill area around 1917 to no success, but then in 1921, the big boys gave it a shot. Shell.
Oh, Shell.
Oh, Shell. On March 23rd, 1921, they started their Alamitos #1 well, and a few months later, on June 23rd, it gushed hard. 114 feet into the air.
Whoa.
Hard. And then the well caved in immediately, but by June 25th, it was up and running again and pumping out 1,000 barrels a day from one well.
Crazy.
Which is like, they like it to shoot up in the air. Like, how are you going going around with a bucket? Like, they want that to happen?
I think that's like an exertion of how much.
It's a wealth of riches.
It's a wealth of riches.
An embarrassment of riches.
Thank you. I think that, I've never thought of it that hard, but I wonder if it's there's so much that
it's like
it compounds and pressures out. So
yeah, that's what's happening. But like, why do they you like that? Like,
yeah. I mean, I assume it's a meaning that there's a lot.
So it's kind of like a person who has like a really loud muffler, or like they're rolling coal, like their car's shooting out a bunch of exhaust. Like, look at how powerful.
There's a bunch of stuff in there. Yeah, I assume.
My name's Andrew Tate.
Well, it's crazy when you knock out a modern reference. Sometimes I'm like, oh wow, he actually was on Twitter this week.
Yeah, I looked at Twitter this week, so I was allowed one reference.
Yeah. What is it, a Barbie movie?
What is this, a SpongeBob meme? Yeah, so the possibilities that this well hinted at caused yet another oil rush and had people flocking to the South Bay trying to get rich, which gave way to oil production that launched California's oil industry even higher than 114 feet into the air and into the stratosphere.
Oh.
Signal Hill became riddled, like we said, with so many oil wells, people started calling it Porcupine Hill.
Funny.
You get it?
Yeah.
Do you need me to explain?
Because there's porcupines living up there.
Do you want...
That's why.
They dug so deep that they hit the porcupine mine.
Porcupine Foundation.
There were so many of them that some of them had their legs intertwined because like was, it's like two trees growing on top of each other. Like there just was not enough space. There were so many oil wells. People were drilling underneath graveyards and giving parts of the profits to the families of the dead people.
Wow.
Within 10 months of that first gush, Signal Hill had 108 wells pulling up 14,000 barrels a day.
Crazy.
And a year after that, there were almost 300 wells doing 260,000 barrels a day. And almost every single person who said, I'm going to go drilling for oil in Signal Hill, almost all of them made money because there was so much oil there.
Wow.
With the help of this oil field, except like if we tried, like, I think I want to try making some money.
Yeah.
Like,
we've had sugar.
Yeah. No. Porcupines. With the help of this oil field by 1930, LA was producing almost a quarter of the world's oil.
Wild.
In Los Angeles. By 1938, the Long Beach oil field had produced 614.5 million barrels of oil, and by 1980, it was over 900 million. In the mid-20th century, this was the highest oil-producing field per acre in the world. In Signal Hill.
In Signal Hill. In
Los
stinky old
Angeles.
Los Angeles. So people are like, that's never going to be a city. That city has no history.
The old the old land of porcupines. But literally streets away from this oil field was yet another oil field.
Oh my God.
The Wilmington oil field. And this one was huge. It was first discovered in 1932, and we now know it is 13 miles long and 3 miles wide, stretching all the way from Torrance to Seal Beach.
That's if you don't know, that's a distance right there. That's very
How
far.
big is it?
How big is she?
This makes it the largest oil field in Los Angeles and the third largest in the lower 48 of the United States, with an estimated total lifetime production of 3 billion barrels of oil. And by 1964, it actually became the first oil field in California to reach 1 billion served. They have a sign going.
Yeah.
4,000 forests destroyed.
You can't read it because there's so much just like methane gas and smog in the air. They're like, I think that's their numbers.
But believe it or not, all this ugly sucking of the Earth's marrow took its toll. By the 1940s, all of this extraction around Long Beach was causing the ground to give in because of the lack of liquid that they were taking.
Yes.
They were sucking it all, so the ground was giving way.
Like a cartoon.
Right. Don't step on it.
Yeah.
It's like a booby trap in case the Japanese come. Some areas saw their ground drop 4 feet in 2 years. And at its lowest point, the ground was 29 feet lower than it was before drilling started. This was causing obviously massive damage to buildings and to pipes. So to deal with this, they started doing water flooding, which is exactly what it sounds like. They just threw a bunch of water in there. They replaced the lost oil liquid with water liquid. And this actually fixed the problem by the 1960s. But once that was fixed, they had a new conundrum.
The sharks were in the water.
We forgot to extract the sharks. Now they're all coming up through the pipes in Long Beach. In 1964, California got the rights to offshore mineral reserves, and the Wilmington oil field stretching out into the ocean all the way down to Seal Beach. That meant the sound of cha-ching was ringing loudly all across Long Beach. Since the 30s, Long Beach had arranged it so that the city of Long Beach got a nice cut of the profits from all this oil drilling. So with this new spread of ocean now open to them to make money, they immediately pounced on it and thus began a project to build a series of offshore drilling islands off the coast of Long Beach known as Project Thumbs.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Did a mafia member come up with that?
Yeah, Jimmy names Thumbs. He came up with it.
Careful what you'll name your thumbs.
Have you ever seen Thumb Wars?
Yeah, I've seen Thumb Wars.
Yeah. The Thumb Father?
Yeah, the Thumb Father. I've seen
Ridiculous.
all that junk.
This is...
I like that you're like, it's ridiculous.
This is part of the Thumbs enterprise.
Yeah.
So it's named after the 5 companies, again, the mafia, the 5 companies not far off that they leased these rights to. Texaco, Humble, Union, Mobil, and Shell. Thumbs. But here was the problem for the forces of greed run rampant. People living in the area knew what oil drilling looked like, and they knew how it destroyed the beauty of an area, and they were not going to let one of the main draws of living in Long Beach be ruined, the view of the ocean.
Yeah.
For this reason, there was a beautification clause put into the deal with the Thumbs. that stipulated that these new islands had to look nice.
They have to put I know you're going to be a big piece of ugly metal sticking out of the ocean. Let's put some street art on it.
Let's put a bow on top.
Okay, it's got to be a cool color.
Yeah, could it have like cat ears and make it really cute?
And we'll do it all Christmassy for Christmas. Yeah. And a little Hanukkah too, I guess.
I guess.
What
year is it? Okay, I guess.
Yeah. They went through a lot recently.
So to come up with the designs for these islands, they hired Joseph Linish, who is the guy who also did Hershey Park, Busch Gardens, and Disneyland.
Whoa, really?
So the goal here clearly was to make them whimsical and amusement park-like to the average person looking at them from a quarter mile away on the shore.
Beautiful, but unattainable. You're not welcome here.
Like Disneyland in 2023.
Yeah. Beautiful, but unattainable. But can't get there.
For the oil barons, for the descendants of the Shell Oil Company. Yes, like Disneyland. So it absolutely worked, this plan. The islands are about 10 to 12 acres each, made of sand dredged up from the bottom of the ocean and boulders from Catalina Island. They're bowl-shaped so the oil won't seep out into the ocean. The buildings are hid behind walls and they have waterfalls in them to muffle the sound of the derricks and the screaming workers.
Yeah.
And they're dramatically lit at night. So when you look at them from the shore, they really do look like little tropical resorts off the shore. And some people are like, they ask around like, I want to stay there. How do I stay there?
But you got to get a job with Exxon, pal.
Well, they're hiring.
Yeah.
Do you like minimum wage? But if you do, you can't afford to stay there. But once you get on there, they're apparently very ugly and look like what they are, which is an oil rig.
Well, how very Los Angeles.
I know.
It
is. It's like a movie set.
Yeah, a beautiful thing set off the coast that you could look at night.
And behind it is just Harvey Weinstein. But in terms of masking the ugliness of the oil industry, they're a huge success. They even won the Engineering Achievement of the Year Award in 1966 from the National Society of Professional Engineers.
Wow.
They're nicknamed the Astronaut Islands because they are named after 4 astronauts who died in the early years of space exploration: Grissom, White, Chaffee, and Freeman. So that's the names of the island.
Yeah.
They've brought in $4 billion to the city of Long Beach. And surprisingly, there haven't been any major pollution incidents on them aside from the usual destruction of nature that their very existence creates. They were actually supposed to become public parks after 35 years when the drilling was supposed to stop. But once the massive size of the Wilmington field became evident, obviously that never happened. But wait. There's still a chance.
What?
At the end of 2022, the LA City Council voted unanimously to ban new oil drilling in Los Angeles and to slowly shut down all oil drilling that remains active within 20 years to put them in line with California's plan to end all oil extraction in the state by 2045.
Hell yeah.
There are still 26 active oil fields in the Los Angeles area with over 5,000 wells pumping in the city of LA. Many of them out in the open, like you'll see in poorer neighborhoods, but the ones in the rich neighborhoods have been hidden as part of aesthetic mitigation, like the one I talked about behind the Beverly Center, and others that are like the one at the supposedly at the farmer's market. Or there's some that are like fake office buildings, and that's an oil well, or a tower, that's an oil well, or this pillow that I'm looking at, that's an oil well. I'm an oil well.
I'm a human oil well.
This is a huge deal to get rid of an industry that has produced a ton of money, but also had devastating effects on the poorer communities of our city and the planet at large. Unfortunately, this plan is just for the city of LA. Long Beach, on the other hand, has no such plans and is actually expanding their oil production. Right. So the city of Long Beach has 2,762 oil wells within their city limits, with about half of those being offshore and 71% of them being active, producing 46,000 barrels a day, supplying 60% of the oil production in the United States is still coming from Long Beach.
That's crazy.
The Wilmington oil field is about 90% depleted, but there's still some 5 million barrels they can suck out of there. And you can bet that at 11:59 p.m., December 31st, 2044, you're still going to hear oil derricks grinding and gushing in Long Beach until the very last second.
Yeah. If people are making money from it, there's no way that people who like to see the sky are going to win.
Yeah. So that's the oil history of Los Angeles.
And it's a big story.
It's a gusher.
It's a gusher. It's a big deal. It's a big deal being part of Los Angeles' history because it was like the first industry, really, the first modern
oil,
industry.
Aerospace, oranges.
Yep, that's it.
Movies. Oh, I forgot about movies.
Yeah, that's the other
Sometimes there's movies about oil.
And they're pretty good. Yeah, and Doheny, like oil itself, is such a big thing. It's so intertwined in the development of the city. It's pretty cool. And the oil, Gilmore Field also is another. I mean, that's
we've talked I feel like we talked a little bit about not the oil part of Gilmore Field, but like when it was like in the baseball
field,
one, when it was a baseball field.
Yeah.
But yeah, the transformation just that patch of land has had from milk farm to oil derricks to baseball, and there was like auto racing and then expensive restaurants that I'm not going to eat at. And then the Apple store came and
and the American Girl doll store opens up and then closes devastatingly.
Is it closed?
I think they're...
You tell me here live on air that the American Girl store is closed?
They're closing it. They're going to reopen somewhere else at the Grove, I believe. Or maybe the Americana.
That's weird.
An icon of Los Angeles history, the American Girl doll store.
You can't... A sign of America if the American doll store can't stay open. So before we get into our listener question at the end of the show, we want to give you one thing to do this month. And that one thing, we want more listener questions.
Yeah.
What?
We want to not beg for it.
Yeah. Don't make me get on my knees.
My back is bad.
My knees are bloody.
Don't make me say, please ask me a question.
Yeah.
But thank you very much to our writer of this question, or everybody who wrote in once we did the call yesterday.
But let's say how you can send us a listener question, la.meekly@gmail.com or Instagram la_meekly.
But we also have a website, meeklypodcast.com. You can submit a question there, and hopefully we will see it.
We'll see it, unless there's a glitch in the
Matrix.
Unless I start seeing guys in suits walking by me repeatedly, then I will not answer your questions. But yeah, send us a listener question. We want more.
Yes.
So this month's listener question. Yes. It's from our pal, Jordan.
Who
from JPL.
From JPL.
He puts the J in JPL. And the P, he pees a lot. So, and the L because
later. Bye.
That's him. Jordan, he comes, he pees later. All right, this is his question. I've heard before that Pasadena used to be fairly anti-Semitic.
And
I like that. Well, Jordan, you like this?
It's not a question, Jordan.
Why isn't it more like that? Can we change that fairly to very? So I've heard before that Pasadena used to be fairly anti-Semitic to the extent that there may even have been housing covenants prohibiting Jews from buying homes, among multiple other minority groups. Anecdotally, that would explain why there's such a small Jewish population and no Jewish food in the area. But in actuality, is that a myth or true story?
Please tell me.
I like that he wrote this because he works at JPL and he's also Jewish. I believe he's Jewish, right?
I don't know.
I don't want to out him as Jewish.
Out him.
But
I don't know.
I take this as like he just wants to get like pastrami sandwiches sent to him at JPL and he can't.
And he can't.
There must be a racist.
I got to reach mid Wilshire before anyone responds to me.
So I looked into this a little bit, and obviously, yes, there's a racist past, but not as racist as you might think towards Jewish people, at least in Pasadena. The first Jewish people came
they weren't kicked out till much later.
Yeah. They were tolerated at first. So the first Jewish people came the year Pasadena was founded in 1874. This was Maurice and Mina Rosenbaum, who lived on Orange Grove Avenue and opened the city's first store was by these two this Jewish couple at Orange Grove in Colorado.
It was also the first store to burn down.
The first protest in Pasadena happened shortly after. In the late 1800s boom of just the general area, more Jewish people came to Los Angeles in general, and Pasadena included, and started opening up more businesses. The first congregation was in 1907, but there wasn't really a permanent one until 1920. And then again, after World War II, more Jewish people started coming to Caltech and JPL, and as that stuff was expanding. It's never been a huge population. In 1925, there were only 60 Jewish families in all of Pasadena. So that's 120 people, give or take children.
Sure.
Pasadena definitely did have racist housing covenants. This is an awful quote that I read. This is not me talking.
This is Goebbels talking.
Yeah. Let me put on my Goebbels filter. So no person shall live upon said property at any time whose blood is not entirely that of the Caucasian race.
Gross.
But if any persons are kept thereon by such Caucasian occupants strictly in the capacity of servants. That's from the Pasadena Improvement Association.
And that was from 2019.
Okay, Pasadena Improvement Association's template for restrictive real estate, 1940. This is from the modern era.
1940, they were kind of going through some trouble at the moment.
I know.
You can kind of help somebody out.
But here's the thing. So 60% of the homes in Pasadena fell under those rules, but that mostly seems to have applied to Black, Latino. I don't know. I mean, it was only 60% of the city. That, like, I'm sure Jewish people, if your neighbors knew, probably weren't happy about it, but I don't know if it was legally restricted because it does say Caucasian, so you can be Jewish and Caucasian.
What's your last name? America Bomb? Yeah. Americawitz? Freedomberg?
First name, Mount Rushmore. Yeah, I don't know how much of this applied to Jewish people, definitely to Black people, because there's the case of Fairchild versus Raines that helped overturn the racial housing laws with the California Supreme Court. This was in regards to a Black family living in Pasadena, but also there were Black people in Pasadena since the beginning of Pasadena also. And the lawyer of that case then went on to represent Hattie McDaniel in her fight against racial housing covenants. This was Lauren Miller.
In West Adams?
Yeah. So it doesn't, I can't tell if Jewish people were explicitly restricted, but I think they were frowned upon. But it's also
don't let us catch you being Jewish.
Right. Just don't do it flamboyantly Jewish. I'm guessing that's like, it's not a huge Jewish history there. So I'm guessing that's why it's not like, it's not like Fairfax or formerly Boyle Heights, where it was like, that's where Jewish people lived. So I'm guessing, 60 families aren't going to support a Jewish restaurant. Yeah. So that's why. That's why you can't get your kreplach.
Did we do an episode about good luck, Jordan.
Good luck finding some challah anywhere near JPL.
Chinese immigrants or Chinese families?
Here goes Greg about his Chinese immigrants again.
How do I become one? No, I think we covered an episode about them getting kicked out of South Pasadena.
Oh, yeah. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry. I was just trying to recall
South
an episode
Pasadena
we did 9 years ago.
Is its own thing because it's a different city. I don't know, like ostriches, yes, Jewish people no. I don't know what their stance was on it. Yeah, I mean most of the cities in LA were racist as hell. Especially because Pasadena is and always kind of has been more of a luxury upper class, like the people who didn't want to live in dirty downtown. Yeah. The richer people lived there, and that at the time was not Jewish people. Yeah. So there's your answer, Jordan. Try to stump us next time.
And just let you know, I have access to the internet. Okay, so try a little harder next time.
And just so you know, I will be reporting this question to your bosses at JPL.
A halal stand just opens up the next week. We didn't know that you wanted it. Sorry.
Yeah, you think halal is Jewish. Interesting. So that's been our oil episode.
Go drink as much oil as you can find.
Go into the ocean and wait till it flies all over you like a baby duckling. And let this episode be the Dawn dishwashing soap to get the oil off of your little feathers.
And don't let it be a straw stuck in the turtle's throat. Is that the same thing?
Yeah.
We're talking about the pollution of the ocean, right?
Don't let this episode be the rings from a 6-pack of sodas stuck around your shell that will have to grow around it.
I can't wait for nature to retake. Just come get us, man.
I can't wait for the forces of nature to unite against humanity.
Which are just birds and fish.
That's all they have left. So yeah, that's the oil. Another cornerstone sort of episode of Los Angeles' history. Mm-hmm. So enjoy your June, enjoy the equinox or whatever it is.
Enjoy June gloom. See ya, wouldn't want to be ya.
Smell you later. Kiss my butt.
I'm gonna beat you up.
Eat my shorts. And that's been yet another episode of LA Meekly.
Gushing barrels since 2013, which is 10 years ago.
Yeah, it is. When we first gushed out of this, when we first gushed out of the Pleistocene hibernation.
Ready to party, microphones in hand, thinking, I'm going to make $1 million with the podcast.
And we have what? A barrel's worth?
A barrel's worth.
We made a barrel's worth of podcasts.
Barrel's worth of Saudi money.
All right.
Bye.
All right, bye.